Welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy Group. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John, and we have the gone through D.D. Palmer's 1910 book. And I'm so excited, not just to end it, but we've completed it. And it's just an amazing journey we went on with D.D. Palmer. And I look back and we started the first recording in 2021. Yep. So, we took breaks. We stopped. We did a couple of books from BJ. We did 1914 again. We did the senior text of Stevenson's textbook. We've done BJ Palmer's Our Masterpiece while we took breaks in reading the book. And, we've just gone through the past, I think, 400 pages nonstop this time. And I'm so glad to have a lot of you who were here from the beginning. Some of you just got in, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. Of really just getting this to cyberspace. D.D. Palmer's 1910 book, The Chiropractor's Adjuster. So, I'm excited, and I want to welcome you guys. How's everybody doing? Doing good. Thumbs are up. And, my feeling was I was going to start back at 975, but there's so much meat on there. And I think I'm going to do my talk at New Beginnings about that page. Um, but we're on page 977, I have marked. Alan, do you have anything different?
I said I had us stopped at 75. Did you want to read that first thing about D.D. Palmer was the first, or did we do
Oh, I
that?
love that page. So let's do that. How about that? Okay. I thought we did it last time, but it's a great place to start because this is a great ending, okay? D.D. Palmer was the first chiropractor to use nerve tracing to write upon innate, to define chiropractic, to use the name innate, to write upon chiropractic, to edit a chiropractic journal, to add a cumulative function, to give a chiropractic adjustment, to teach the science of chiropractic, to state that action is intelligent life, to found a chiropractic school, the PSC, to discover that the body is heated by nerves, to assert that molecular action produces animal heat, to harmonize the scope and action of the two intellects, to state that that nerve irritation increases molecular action, to affirm that life depends upon the condition of nerves, to assert that disease is too much or not enough functionating, to declare that vertebra out of alignment impinges upon nerve. Now, this is one what I wanted to say about impingement because he talked about nerve tension and this says impingement. And so I had just a thought of why is he using impingement at this point? Anybody have any insights?
Well, he talks about impingement as opposed to pressure throughout.
Yeah, okay.
The
Yeah,
pressure on a nerve is different from an impingement of a nerve.
I would agree 100%. Okay. Thanks for clarity. To affirm that okay, to define disease and its cause as understood by chiropractors. Now, this is the part I have marked, and this is going to be my talk at New Beginnings. To insist, huh? To insist that spirit, soul, mind, and body are four different distinct entities. Powerful, important stuff. To locate the center place and the second center place of the spinal column. Joe, you mentioned something you're describing what center place. We talked about that a couple of times. Do you mind just enlightening us a little bit of that again?
It's a little bit based on the Merrick system to say
Right.
there's a kidney place, there's center place, there was different levels of the spine that I mean it's cookbook. If somebody's got a kidney issue, you're going to adjust them in kidney place. So it was a
Good.
very early concepts that took place there, and there's a whole Merrick chart. Last time we talked, I thought there was something that was published by it, and it turns out the late John Wolfe, the editor of the HC Journal, was researching it, but he never published it, and we can't find his work. But he had asked me questions, and I have history of his interactions but sadly he's gone, and it didn't get his work never got completed into something that we could look at and see what that was.
Well, God bless him, and we love him. That he maybe it might turn up in a book on a shelf. We might have some information. We'll see how that happens in the future. To determine that the normal rate of nerve vibration is about 200 a minute. To prove that the degree of animal heat is determined by the firmness of nerve tissue. To state that there are four functions: vital, vegetative, and intellectual and consumptive. To state that 95% of diseases are caused by displaced vertebra, the remainder by luxations of other joints. To ascertain that functions are created by impulse, which are modified by the force or momentum received from nerve vibration. To determine the nerve tension, the condition of being tense, strained, stretched to stiffness, is in the course of all disease, that normal tone is health.
Is the
To
cause
state
of all disease.
my mistake, cause of all disease, that normal tone is health. To state that poisons act on nerves, and that by their action on muscles, vertebra are drawn out of alignment, and that antidotal drugs or poisons may replace vertebra. Beautiful stuff. And the first to use the name innate, which is widely used everywhere now. Was D.D. Palmer the founder of the word of innate? Is he the first one to use it? Born within? I don't know. We find it. He did a lot of research back in those days. We can find that out. To state that excessive heat softens nerve tissue, hereby lessening vibration and the consequent heat until temperature of the patient becomes normal, or in some cause even subnormal. To declare that the degree of heat determines the quality of tissue, which in turn determines the degree or extent of functional activity, and that either excessive or deficient functional activity is disease. Okay, beautiful stuff there. And, you know, should we keep just reading, or do you guys want to discuss? How have you been along this journey, Alan Lichter? When we've gone through the 1% of living chiropractors, I bet this was read a great deal more in the past. 1% of the living chiropractors, and I'm being generous, have read this 1910 book cover to cover. Okay?
That's way true.
Way true. It's the most misquoted book I've ever. People on stage misquote D.D. Palmer all the time.
So much of these writings are ignored by so much of people in our profession today, and I'm glad to see there's some resurgence. I'm very concerned for our profession, as I've said here in the past, and
Yeah.
uh, to
Yep.
read this is just inspirational, and I love that other people listen to some of the things we say, and hopefully it helps them learn more and accept more of this information as valid and important to what we do. It's the
Well,
true explanation of what and why.
this afternoon I had a nice talk with a young chiropractor, been in practice for a few years in Singapore. And he's listened to the podcast, and we're talking about D.D. Palmer and how excited people get talking about D.D. Palmer. And he gives us the science. He talks about philosophy, the spirituality of philosophy. And, just like I said, this sentence to insist that spirit, soul, mind, and body are four separate, distinct entities. Pasquale would say even innate is different than spirit. So, giving us that spiritual consciousness. Do you read that in the medical books of the day, or even now? I'm understanding that spirit within the individual, God expressing through this matter, And the 33 principles come out of this book in probably 1914. So, it's an inspiration because he goes through such breadth and depth of chiropractic, human physiology, spirituality, and I just feel blessed to have read it. I'll be honest. I feel better as a chiropractor now that I have gone through this book. More than any other one, actually, 1914 as well. Carol, how about you and Bob?
Well,
Hey, okay. I don't want to interrupt your dinner. I'm hungry too. Alan, you just joined us recently in the past few visits. I'm so excited to have you on our group. And what have you got so far out of what we're doing in your research and your life and the work that you do?
I'm almost embarrassed to say that I've never read this book. I wasn't into it until I joined the group last time, and I didn't even know these Facebook groups existed until somebody came on Reddit and told me. I don't really comment on Reddit because of the aggressiveness on here, and I got introduced to this and I got re-energized philosophically. When I was in Palmer, Virgil Strang was my philosophy instructor. I recorded every class except 3 because I wasn't there. And I went back and I took one cassette tape that he read a letter from a 64 graduate of experience with his brother-in-law who had astrocytoma. And before he went to have surgery, the surgeon suggested that he continue to see his brother-in-law, the chiropractor. When he went in and did the surgery, he said in the letter, the surgeon didn't talk to the family. He called the chiropractor and said, "What have you been doing to this man?" They said, "Oh, I've just been adjusting him." He said, "I've never seen a tumor like this. It was encased in a calcific ring." He said, "I couldn't get everything out." And he said, "I suggest you keep adjusting him."
Wow.
And every 6 months, the man got a updated MRI.
Okay.
And they were always, the tumor was getting smaller, the ring was getting bigger. And his family finally said after a year and a half or 2 years, "Oh, you're cured. You don't need to get adjusted anymore." And the doctor said, "Please don't stop." Well, he did stop right after one of his 6-month MRIs. And then the next 6-month MRI, the surgeon called him for the second time and said, "Well, what has changed in care?" He said, "Well, he quit coming in." He said, "Well, the calcific ring is breaking down."
Wow.
And he said, the tumor's growing. We can't go back and go down a different road and see if it would have turned out differently. But we don't talk about things like this today typically, unless you go back and study the philosophy of this.
And I
What
think
disappoints me about my state board is they talk about insurance almost exclusively. And it drives me bonkers because I don't do insurance.
yeah.
I got a cash practice. I see lots of children. I see lots of adults. And I'm not interested in that stuff. I'm interested in people stepping out there and saying, yeah, an adjustment can help this, that, or the other. Whether it can or not, it's certainly not going to hurt anything. And reading through this, actually, right now, I'm reading The Bigness of the Fellow Within, trying to digest that one bite at a time. And it's just energized me more and more to get back into the philosophy. And I am embarrassed to say I've kind of left that behind the last 30 plus years.
You're not alone in that. And that's why we do this to re-inspire. We all have to get re-dipped in it. That's what Dr. Sid used to talk about, getting dipped into the philosophy. And we all have these, it's slipping and checking, and getting back to it, how amazing it, and listening to the words of Dee Dee Palmer. because I think a lot of what he is writing is to inspire us, which means to bring in spirit. So you've been reinvigorated and re-dipped in the principles and philosophy of chiropractic. Thanks for sharing that, Alan. I really appreciate it. And
Alan,
just an
Alan,
announcement that
I
we're
want
going
to
to go
say,
to 1906 after this.
I
Okay.
so we,
have that
so,
book.
Alan, go ahead. You
Alan,
were saying something?
Alan, I just want you to know that's not a lone example that you gave. Now, a couple weeks ago, I told about a story about that I heard directly from Clay Thompson at Thompson Seminar, where he got adjusted from BJ from having some severe pain in his side, and years later he had to have some abdominal surgery, and the surgeon said to him, "Do you know you had an appendix issue?" And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, your appendix is entirely encased in calcium." And he said, years ago, I had this thing in my side, and Dr. Palmer adjusted me, and I never had another problem. And the body has an amazing ability to seal off issues and heal issues when we remove the interference. And that your story and Dr. Clay's story, and I know there's dozens of others out there, are evidence of that ability. The body has the ability to heal. We just needs no interference.
I think you mentioned that last time we were on here, and that reminded me of something. I think it was Fred Barge who said, "There's only one thing a doctor can do: remove the obstruction to healing."
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, we're in an amazing place. And, Dee Dee's laid it out for us. Let's continue, okay? And I'm going to read this page, and then I think I'm just going to just skip to that last two chapters. They're very short, and then there's a poem by Dee Dee Palmer at the end. Sound good, everybody?
Go ahead.
Brain power is estimated by the way you use it. Why not learn to adjust displacements and help the disabled? Chiropractic is a science just so far as it is specific, excuse me. The only failure a man should fear is the failure to do his best. Disease is either a lessening or an exaggeration of functioning. Ponderable matter can be weighed on scales, imponderable cannot. The man who practices chiropractic is a chiropractor. He who he who practices music is a musician. Chiro, Pathological phenomena are variations of physiological processes, modification of function, structure, and position. Chiropractic rays of light are causing ignorance and superstition to varnish.
To vanish, I think I think that's a misprint.
He's got an R in there. So, but yeah, to vanish or dull, but as surely as the rising sun chases away the midnight darkness. We recognize only five senses. If we had eight, we would know more. The future, we will see more senses develop and unknown forces utilized. And I think that's a very interesting view of the future. I haven't learned telekinesis yet, but I'm working on it. There is a vast difference between treating effects and adjusting the cause. We have been accustomed to the former. The latter was discovered 15 years ago and is gradually becoming developed into a science. A chiropractor is not a therapeutist. He is not interested in discovering nor in applying remedies. To be versed in therapeutics would be to be skilled in the use and application of remedies. Chiropractors do not use remedies. Okay, I say we just skip a page or two right here. And
I think there's two lines that I had marked on the
go
next
ahead and read
page.
them.
So about halfway down the page, he said this was something that was online recently. Somebody said, "Do you call the people you see patients?" And here he says, "A patient who is one who is ill under the care of a doctor. A patient, quote, maintaining perfect health of mind and body, unquote, would not be a patient." And I
I
think
like that.
that's an interesting thing for us to annotate, because so many people call their people they see patients. Um, we used to call them practice members. Uh, some
Well,
people call them clients. But
well, like Pasquale, we started calling them people. These are our people. Take care of the people, right? You
yeah,
know, I don't have a membership practice. I have a cash practice, but it's the people, man, right? Thank you for that, Alan, because that's poignant and very powerful and important for right now, for sure. Okay, the next page.
the next line, the one other line that I wanted to read here, because we talk about mental impulses, and people have been asking, is there a difference? What's the difference between a mental impulse and a nerve impulse? And he says here, impulses are not functional. They do not perform any regular functions. Organs perform functions. Impulses order, direct, prompt, cause action of organs.
And he would have said vital force. He used to pick on BJ for saying mental impulse, right? That's BJ's term is
Well, he's
mental
talking about
impulse.
impulses here, so I just wanted to annotate that as well for us.
And I think that's why he's probably saying it here. His was mental, no, vital force. Thanks for saying that. Thank you. All right. I'm skipping over to injured brakeman recovers mind, but doctors take his $16,000 in damages. Page 980. And I think that's why he's talking about this is, the unfairness and imbalance of that system. Terre Haute, Indiana, January 5th. John Subrick, who has been insane since he was injured 2 years ago when working as a brakeman in the Big Four. He has been restored to sanity by an operation on the skull, only to be told that the $16,000 in damages granted by the court had been used by the medical man in treatment of his case. Along all fine arts, one of the finest is that of painting the cheeks with health, Ruskin. To study functions without innate, the controller is like studying creation without a creator, excuse me. Creation without a creator. Uh, Antonym words of opposite meanings are health, robustness, soundness, strength, sturdiness, and vigor. One would think chiropractic a con, con, is that
Contortionist.
contortionist when observing the variety of tables, the position of the operator, and the many movements used by the chiropractors. External injuries from falls, jars, and bruises do not cause subluxations. Injuries do not cause displacements. A sudden jar or fall unexpected by may cause displacements of vertebra, but bruises never. Okay? Chiropractors are not interested in discovering medical remedies for the curing or healing of disease. They repair, adjust, fix, replace displaced bones of the skeletal frame, which are impinging upon sensitive nerves. ADO wants to, what's ADO? Wants
Doctor
to
of
know.
osteopathy.
Ah, yeah, that's right. Wants to know how we can give correct treatment for spinal lesions when the patient is flat on his back with typhoid. Turn him over to a chiropractor, of course. I like that. Chiropractic is specific in saying this. I do not refer to those who know but little of it as a science. Osteopathy is in practice of concentration, relaxation, extension, rotation, and counter extension is neither specific nor direct. Alan, you want to read this last page?
Sure. I want to acknowledge something I saw online today from Simon, that something in your new book, Joe, with Simon talks about the DOs, that the six osteopaths that went back to practice after attending school at Palmer, right?
Yeah, one of the 23 disciples, six of them were had some training before. They were either osteopathic patients or they were osteopaths themselves. and would have obviously known the difference. If Palmer was just teaching osteopathy, they would have recognized it right away and say, no, this is something we were taught. That they paid Palmer a lot of money, and Palmer taught them something different, something they were not taught in osteopathic school. And in turn, those went back into the osteopathic profession, into schools, and ended up the specific single segment, specific hand contact, single joint spinal thrust of Palmer was slowly integrated into the osteopathic community and was brought there by these Palmer students that prior to this, that was not what was taught at osteopathic schools. And we were able to document that and show the specific pathways that these doctors had.
Yeah, I think the theme of what the little piece that was online today was that people so often talk about chiropractic was influenced by osteopathy, and what you guys have shown is it was the other way around.
Right.
Osteopathy learned stuff from the chiropractors.
There was still certainly some, Didi had some osteopathic terminology that he used. But as far as the methodology, the actual treatment, the thrust was not taught in Kirksville. It was not taught at osteopathic schools. There's overlap, and we know the osteopath used the term adjustment. AT still used the term adjustment for his procedures in the 1890s. The osteopath used subluxation. Subluxation is not a chiropractic term. It was used in osteopathy prior to Palmer integrating it into chiropractic. So there's terminology that does come from osteopathy. There's some ideas that come there. So it's not like there wasn't it wasn't just one directional, but people don't understand things that Palmer did influenced osteopathy also. So Palmer certainly read everything. He looked at everything. He was influenced. Osteopaths still had the same foundation of the spiritualist. So some things the AT still has, you say, oh, that's osteopathy. Well, actually, that was from the spiritualist community. So it wasn't original to Still. So you can't say, oh, Didi took it from Still. This was something that was common in the osteopathic or in the spiritualist literature too. It's concepts there. So both of them were exposed to the same ideas and concepts and came to similar conclusions about the same time.
That's a very good point, really, of the osteopaths taking chiropractic with D.D. Palmer, that they were gladly paying that and got new information, not repeated information.
They would have known, and they would have called them out. They spent a lot of money, $500 in 1899 is like $14,000. So you go to a guy and you give him 14 grand, and he's showing you stuff that you already knew and you had seen before. You go, I want my money. You're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're teaching stuff. But they never said that. None of the people who learned that from Palmer that were osteopaths before, none of them that learned from Palmer and paid him ever said he was a fraud and he taught them osteopathy. In fact, we have many quotes from those people saying they were happy with chiropractic. They were using it along with osteopathy. It was helpful, and they were glad that they took the course and learned chiropractic.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any insights or want to say anything? Well, I was going to go to 981, the last tiny paragraph and the paragraph below that with DD. And, we really just have a couple of little statements on that one right after that. And this section, he's talking about the 1906 book. And this is where we're going to go next. And so I'm just going to read this from DD right now. Many booklets have been written on chiropractic. Some of them I have criticized. I hope for the benefit of the student. Of books, the first was a compilation of my own writings. The Science of Chiropractic by Palmer. I seriously objected to its publication, as I felt that I did not then know enough of the science to write a book. Several volumes have been added by BJ, my son, which are not worth the paper they where is it? I lost my place. Several volumes from BJ have been added, my son, which are not worth on the paper they have worth. Why does it say they have worse than wasted? The paper that they have worse than wasted. That was a kind of a little mouthful for me. I apologize. Because of their erroneous teaching, Langworthy and Smith put out a book in 2 volumes under the title of Modernized Chiropractic, which I have not seen. Neuropathy by Davis, Chiropractic. Really what we call neuropathy. The chiropractor's analysis by Carver have nothing in them that is really chiropractic. Spinal adjustment by Gregory contains much that is chiropractic and some that is not. And now there is the one by the discoverer and the founder of the science and the art of chiropractic. I hope it will judiciously I hope it will be judiciously criticized in the same spirit that I have criticized others. So he's saying, look, you've been on the adjuster's chopping block, but I'm open to insights and your opinions as well. I like that. So we'll do the next page or two, and then I want to read that by Dee Dee, and we've basically completed this book. Carbuncle, coffee, and concentrated lies. Do right, fear no man, be a law unto yourself. He that listens to reason is a man of the highest type. Truth is stranger than fiction because less frequently told. Truth and honesty are twins. Reason is their guardian angel. The new is not always true. The true is not always new. A trite saying. Chiropractic is founded upon different principles than those of medicine. Relieving human suffering and diffusing universal knowledge is humanitarian. The most wonderful study of mankind is man. The grandest and greatest science is chiropractic. The practitioner and patient are often surprised at quick recoveries when cause are adjusted. This book is written for those who are thinkers, those who know not it all. Readers of this class will pursue it from cover to cover. The osteopath accepts all of allopathy except that of drugs of late. Many are accepting the science of pharmacology. Chiropractors assent to nothing that is allopathic. In all conditions, make the adjustment, move the vertebra with as little force and as few movements as possible. Oh, I say that all the time. I didn't know he said that. I love it. Remember that every move creates some inflammation. The quicker the move, the less force required. There's speed too. That's what we teach. Speed. The least amount of force with the greatest amount of outcome is what I always say too. Worship truth and justice. You need no other God. I claim to be the first person to adjust vertebra by hand using the spinous and transverse process as levers. I developed the art known as adjusting and formulated the science of chiropractic and developed its philosophy. The chiropractor and spinologist are a certain school. Get out their cards with Dr. UC blank DC. It's the sign of egotism to place both doctor and the letters of your degree to your name. Some think not good taste to use either, but one is permissible. I'm getting DD tongue-tied a little bit.
That's
Now,
that's still an issue. So many
it's
people
still
say
an issue.
doctor in DC, it's like what you say, doctor, doctor. It's
Even in I had a graphic designer just making a flyer for my event, and he put, Dr. Haig John DC. I was like, we got to choose one or the other. It's one or the other. Dr. Sid used to say, he'd say, put the DC or put the chiropractor behind your name. I remember him saying that. All right, I'm skipping to page 984, okay? Science is a collection of demonstrated facts. Those who love their followers serve their creator. Oh man. Songbirds are vegetarians. Carnivorous birds are croakers. A waste of money, a $10 hat on 10 cents worth of brains. He can never know any deep joy who can laugh at the sorrows of another. True. Don't try to get well by two systems at once. It is unfair to both systems and to yourself. Dr. Blank Chiropractor and Monsieur Chiropractor removes the cause of disease. If so, why use massage? Chiropractic is Chiropractic is fascinating and remunerative. It is founded on the osteological and neurological facts which are demonstrable. Our readers will find mental chiropractic food, which will require intellectual digestion, whether they be laymen or practitioners. Pasquale often said, chiropractic is food. I gotta like that one. We have to take the nervous system as we find it, and not as we might like to have it. That's important. Innate intelligence has so formed it as best suited for its environments. That's such a huge statement right there. The regular physician treats symptoms, whereas the osteopath treats the lesion causing the symptoms. Chiropractors do not treat symptoms or lesions. Every chiropractic school is a college, and every chiropractic college is superior in every respect to that of any other college of chiropractic. Each and every school has the greatest teachers.
I
That
want
was
to
a beautiful.
I want to go back and read the last paragraph of 83.
Go ahead.
It says, quote, flow of mental impulses, unquote. To flow is a type of motion characteristic of fluids, that is, of liquids, gases, and viscous solids. A viscous solid is one distinguished by viscosity, having the quality of being adhesive, sticky, ropey, or glutinous consistency. Impulses do not flow as a liquid, transudite, or circulate as a fluid, or become softened sufficiently to run as a viscous solid. Rivers flow from lakes, tears flow from eyes, and menstrual flow is periodical. Motor impulses are of the mental, the sensory are not. Impulses are not liquid, therefore do not flow. Light, heat, sound, and impulse are transmitted by vibration, molecular action, they do not flow. Vital force is inherent, consequently does not flow. There's a difference there being said between educated and innate in my mind.
I think you're right on target. I'm so glad you read that. Thank you very much. Because that's come up a little bit lately. You know?
There's a metaphysical aspect to what we do. There's an intangible aspect to what we do. Yes, we practice in the physical world, but many techniques there's a lot of physical and techniques that are only seek to through the material to determine what needs to be adjusted. And yet many people will tell you that they can sense where there's an adjustment or an aberrancy in energy and then verify it with a physical technique.
Well, Alan, you just gave a great plug for innate adjusting because that's exactly what we do. And we've got to be able to feel it.
I come from a school where my first chiropractor was a DNFT practitioner. And I was lucky enough to take at least one seminar with Dr. Van Rumpt himself. And and yeah, we talk to the feet, and you can just ask the question and you're talking to the body, but you have to be in tune with that person that's in front of you for that to happen. You have to get yourself out of the way. And that sounds woo woo at times to people, but if you know it, you know it. If you've done it, you know it's true. And that's
Yeah,
all I can say about it.
absolutely. Well, it's going to lead me into a shameless plug for innate newborn adjusting at Life University, April 25th. And we're doing our philosophy night at Dr. Mike Morato's office, which is absolutely awesome in Sandy Springs. He's been on my staff and team and one of my close friends for many, many years. And if anybody on this group is in around Atlanta, come to the philosophy night. I'll post the address if you want. But we're gonna jam. I think we're gonna get into some deep stuff, and a lot of it's coming from these last chapters, I think, of Didi. Are we ready for his? He did his best poem. Didi Palmer, page 985. He did his best. When I am dead, if men can say I helped the world upon its way, with all my faults of words and deeds, mankind did some little need. For what I have done, then in my grave, no greater honor shall I crave. If they can say, if they but can, excuse me, if they can say, if they but can, he did his best, he played the man. His ways were straight, his soul was clean, his failings not unkind nor mean. He loved his fellow man and tried to help him. I'll be satisfied. But when I'm gone, the only one will weep because my life is gone. We will weep because, oh, excuse me, and feel the world is somewhat bare because I am no longer there. Call me a knave, my life misspent, no matter, I shall be content. Thank you,
Hmm.
Dee Palmer. What a blessing. I'm so happy to have read that. And thank everybody that has joined in. I'm so happy you were here for the last one. And, next week we start again. I had to take a little break and we went on spring break, but we're going to be back 100% now. And we're going to the 1906 book. Okay. And the end of this with those quick, like kind of epigrams, that's how the beginning of this book starts. I have not outlined it all. I've got up to a page about 124 over the years, but it's time to start over and start anew. Okay?
So starting that 1906, you'll see a little bit, and I think I mentioned the past one, and Dee Dee mentioned today that he didn't approve of that book being taught, and the historical record doesn't really support that position. We published this a couple years ago, looking at what was the first books, because many times in literature, Smith and Langworthy's modernized chiropractic, you see that as being the first book of chiropractic. They say that was the first book published, and Palmer's came later. So we kind of researched all that, and a component of that, we can document that Didi was a part of this 1906 book. He started working on it in November and December of 05. They were advertising it in January 06. He was writing the content of the book. He disapproves of it now. At that point in March, when he goes to jail, him and BJ split, and BJ finished the book and added a whole lot more content to it. But there's core parts of the 1906 book that were written by Didi, was his writing, and was his book, that he approved of it until their partnership split, and that changed whether he wanted to continue. But he probably also received none of the income from the book. So BJ finished the book, publishes it, sells it, and he's not sending a royalty check to Dad. So that may be a component in Didi's statements that I didn't approve of the book at the time, was I didn't get paid. I didn't get paid for it is a strong consideration whether you support something. So it'll be interesting to go through the 1906 book. I know Simon's put together some content. I don't think he's published it yet, but he's been able to identify which ones were truly Dee Dee's writings and which ones were BJ's added. That he's got some algorithm to figure out Dee Dee's words and phrases and BJ's words and phrases to be able to identify what was Dee Dee's book and what was added on by BJ after Dee Dee left the partnership.
That's really exciting, and it's why well, one of the reasons I want to really dive into the book. And when Simon was on my podcast, that's what we talked about. And because 1906 to me is one of the most intriguing books because of that split and Dee Dee saying it wasn't ready, I didn't want to publish it. And now you're saying that makes really perfect sense in reality. He's not going to say, oh, yeah, that was a great book because you didn't pay me, right? It makes great sense.
It came to control. So Dee Dee literally made statements that he had 200 pages together and that BJ wanted to do more, make it bigger, and he was against that. So Dee Dee makes statements that he was against enlarging it, that it should be just what he's put together. But once the partnership ended, BJ enlarged the book like he wanted to. So it comes down to control. Who was doing the final edits. The information in there was somewhat was Dee Dee's with his intent to publish. Some of it was probably Dee Dee's maybe old writings that he didn't give, thought would be included, and BJ included them. Some of them was BJ's new writings, but Dee Dee had no say in the final edits. He didn't get to decide. He thought it should have been smaller content and it was much larger, and he just had no say in the edits and didn't receive any of the income out of it. So that certainly would be reflective in his opinion. 1910, 4 years later, his opinion would reflect that.
Well, that is such good insight, really, because, you could feel the feud in a lot of chapters in this book with Ian BJ, and we're only looking at a couple of years, really, 4 years since this one was published. And so it's still pretty hot under the collar, I guess, about those things. This was a great journey. I'm so this is what my book looks like right now. I mean, these are all my notes and outlines. And yep. And I hope it's since 2021, guys. 2021. And it's been such an honor. And Alan or whoever is listening, because we have a lot of students from around the world, Europe, Singapore, all these countries, and they go back and you listen to it's in the playlist. They have a whole playlist of just D. D. Palmer's 1914. The whole playlist is 1910, 1914. Each book is separated of us discussing it and breaking down. I'm actually going to work on just removing some of even the discussion where it's just the reading, so we have it as just a read book as much as we have too, maybe. So we're really kicking about some of those things around to see how we can get more DD in and more green books as a whole to the chiropractic profession, because I don't know if anybody reads anymore. I think they listen to everything on MP3 or YouTube. We'll figure it out. That's why we're there, right?
One question.
Go ahead.
Was that 1906 book originally red book and now they've reprinted it in green?
Joe, do you know the answer to that?
The first 50 that were printed were red leather, and they're numbered. So there's in the middle of one of the first pages, right in the middle is a completely blank page, and there's a number stamped in there in kind of a purplish color. So the first 50 that were done were red leather. They didn't say volume 1 on the spine. They just said the Science of Chiropractic, Palmer. So after he sold those first 50, he realized, I'm going to sell a lot of books. In fact, I'm going to do a whole series of books. So the next print run was also red leather, were some of them, and they now said volume 1 on the spine. BJ realized this is going to take off. I'm going to do a whole series of books. But the very first print run of 50 did not even say volume 1 on it. It was red leather. And then you got into the green ones from there, and that became the next ones. But volume two also had a red leather. We would call it a presentation copy. So it was an early run of them. It was a little bit higher grade, and you could get a red leather volume two. And then there was the standard green volume two also. That volume one, 1906, volume one was reprinted in 1910, completely different book. So it's not the same book. So you'll see a volume one, 1910, 1913, 1920. They are not the same book as this. 1906 volume one is considered a different book completely from those other volumes.
I always wondered why we saw those, like, why they were all called Volume One.
He wanted the series.
Yeah.
So, when he did volume one, 1906, volume two was 1907, volume three, 1908, volume four, 1908, volume five, 1909.
Yeah.
And then he went back in 1910 and redid the volume one, and now it was all his content. Most of the DD material was removed, and it was a new volume one of BJ Palmer material, and the DD material was no longer included in that. Then he revised those other ones sequentially also. So there was a volume two. Second edition was like 1913, and volume three was done, and then volume four was. So he was editing each volume, and some he went back, but he wanted those volumes. There's a bunch of volumes that he planned that were never finished, and we can see them. He's done graphics and said, here's what volume six is going to be, volume seven, volume eight, volume nine. He already had titles for them, but they were never produced. Other books took those volume numbers. He never produced the true list as he initially laid it out and planned it.
Thank you for that. That is, it's so interesting. So interesting, our history. Well, everybody, it's it's almost like it's like an end of an era, finishing the big book, the 1910 book. So I really appreciate you. My reading has improved getting through it, trying to read D.D. Palmer. But I bless you all. Have a great night. If you're in Atlanta, you all come for free. I'm letting most of the students come for very discounted prices. So, well, bless you, and I'll see you all soon. See you next week.
Okay, next
Good
week.
night, everybody.
Nice.
All right.